All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of something different here. I'm doing the power rankings for the NFL tomorrow. I want to talk a little bit about some stuff that's going on that's National Football League related because I'll touch on it tomorrow when I do the power rankings. But these are items that I think I should talk about today. Post a video today of it, and then tomorrow we can get into the power rankings. And for people wondering about other television stuff, that'll be later on in the week. You've got to go where the views are taking you, and right now the views are definitely in National Football League's favor. One thing that on my main channel I've always gone with is whatever's getting the views, that's what's likely going to be talked about. Mostly. For the most part. So if I'm doing a series and I'm going, this isn't getting any traction, I am willing to say, all right, I'll put this aside even while I may love it. Now, I do love the NFL, and yet the league did... They're in a tough position, so it's not on the board, but the Antonio Brown thing is a tough position. So you have an accusation coming in via a civil lawsuit. So you could argue the NFL or the New England Patriots could suspend him, and the Patriots say if we'd known about this, we wouldn't have signed him. And yet they've signed him, so they're paying him. And it's a civil lawsuit, and it's not a criminal lawsuit. So a civil lawsuit, well, anybody can do that. And they were, I was watching a couple different shows today, and they were talking about how as a civil lawsuit, it's a little bit trickier because anybody can bring a civil lawsuit against anybody else. And if it's going to be, all right, well, if it's a civil lawsuit, we're going to bring people out. It's football, and boy, I tell you, there are reasons people get upset with football players and talk about football players in unflattering ways. And it's situations like this that don't help, and they don't help the NFL's PR department, and I don't envy those people at all. So that's out there. He played yesterday. There's some talk about how much better he could potentially make a Patriots team that already today I saw talk about, hey, can they go 16-0? And I'm like, they're just 2-0. Let's settle down. But the Jaguars, this just came out, the cornerback, Jalen Ramsey wants a trade. So he gets into it on the sideline with a coach. He can't do that. So he's trying to get traded. And word has it, if the Jaguars are going to trade him, they want a minimum of a first-round draft pick, likely more than that. And they are looking at trying to maximize the return on Jalen Ramsey. The guys are Pro Bowlers, so you have to get something back. The Jaguars, a team that's reeling. I'll talk about that in a second. But so Ramsey wants out, and I don't imagine he may be the only member of the Jaguars who wants out right now. Ben Roethlisberger is out for the season with an elbow injury. Here's the thing. Roethlisberger is an older quarterback, and his replacement that came in yesterday looked pretty good. He did. I thought he played pretty well. Again, we'll see as the season goes along. I don't think the Steelers were going very far this year anyways. And I think being 0-2 and now Roethlisberger being out, I think this is going to become more and more apparent. But it's still early in the year, and you just never know. We've seen situations where a veteran quarterback gets hurt, and you go, oh, God, the world's falling apart. We're all going to die. And then this kid comes in, and what do you know? Not on the board as well as Eli Manning. The question was asked of their coach today, New York Giants coach. So, Eli, is he going to be your starter next week? And he's like, look, I don't want to answer that question because, that's a silly question. And they're like, well, people could take that question to mean that you might replace him. And he goes, yeah, I know. Okay. Weird moment. It's just really weird, because if he was going to play Eli, if Eli's the starter, you just go, Eli's the guy. He's the starter. Yeah, well, obviously, we're going to have Eli. Didn't do that. He's just sort of, well, I'm insulted by your question so much, I refuse to answer it. But is he your starter? I refuse, good sir. Drew Brees is out 6 weeks with a finger injury. Apparently really, really painful. Going to require surgery, and he'll be back in 6 weeks. Might be an optimistic appraisal. Maybe he'll be fine. Depends on the break. Depends on what kind of an injury it is. The Saints do benefit from having a mediocre division. And I'm not trying to throw shade at the division. You've got the Buccaneers, the Saints, Atlanta, and Carolina. And when I'm looking at it, all four teams have allowed more points than they've scored already this year. So, and there's three of them tied for first with a 1-1 record. Tampa, New Orleans, and Atlanta. Tampa's technically the leader right now, but It's a bizarre situation because yeah, we could see an 8-8 team win this division. We could see a mediocre team win this division, 8-8 or 9-7. Remember when a team was 7-9 made the playoffs? I do. So yeah, this is how football works sometimes, where you'll have a division of 4 teams, and sometimes none of the 4 are particularly good. In the Saints' case, I saw a lot of comments about whether or not God hates them as a result of Brees getting hurt, and of course that was in the LA game, the Rams game, and we know what happened with the Rams in the playoffs last year, and they should have flown a flag. It's fine, depending on which fan base you're in. But yeah, so New Orleans, they may be saved by the fact they're in a pretty mediocre division. Or Atlanta maybe turns things around. I have to say, I thought Atlanta played well last night. And if Atlanta can do that regularly, who knows? Maybe Atlanta can go 9-7 and win this division and make the playoffs. Football's weird that way. With a 16 game season, it is easier on some level to put together a good season and make the playoffs, at least in theory, because you only have to get hot for 3 or 4 games and suddenly you're in. The WTF moment of the week, I'm not sure if this is going to be a regular thing. What were the Jaguars thinking? That's an honest question. You're behind by 1 point. Kick the extra point. Tie the game. I don't care if it's going to go to overtime. Tie the game. They went for the 2-point conversion and lost. And I've seen people today going, hey, at least they made the effort. That's great. Yeah, they went to 0-2. And if you're Houston, you have to be like, thanks. Kind of handed it to us. So I know there'll be some people saying, oh, the Jaguars were going for the win and good for them. But they lose the game, and now Jalen Ramsey is probably going to get traded over the next week. And all of a sudden, things are falling apart. And here's the thing. Last year, the Houston Texans kept losing games that were heartbreakers. And in this case, they win one that they probably should have lost. Or at the very least, it should have been tied going into overtime or something along those lines. And instead, they get the win when the Jags go for the 2-point conversion. So maybe things are turning around for Houston. And maybe this year will turn out different than last year. And last but not least, the big question a lot of people have right now, are the Miami Dolphins the worst team in football history? So we're not talking about whether or not Miami's the worst team in football right now. The conversation's become worst team in history. I'm going to go ahead and say 2 weeks into the season is early for that. But if you saw the bobbling almost catch that ends up going the other way, and for Miami fans, you probably know what I'm talking about. That was historically bad. That was just an awful play. Miami's been outscored 102-10. 10. The interesting thing is that they didn't have a bad start yesterday against New England. They actually were playing pretty darn well, and then the floodgates opened. So for Miami, it's going to be a tough season. They're not a playoff team. Do I think they're the worst team in football? Right now, yes. All time? Oh, it's early to be making that complaint. I think that while they're going to be the worst team in football this year, going with the all-time tag, I think we'd have to look at some of the worst teams of all time. I seem to remember a Green Bay team that went 1-15. There's other teams that have gone 0-16, 1-15, and 2-14, and they've been pretty bad. So at some point, I could see myself doing a video where I talk about the historically bad teams. Miami's going to take a run at it. I don't necessarily think they're going to be the worst of all time. So yeah, there you go. Kind of a news of the day kind of football thing. And I'm wearing Chargers because when the Chargers moved and I was kind of like, I'm losing my San Diego Chargers, there was a subscriber to my hockey channel that said, hey, I could probably find you a lot of San Diego stuff because I live here and everybody's getting rid of their San Diego jerseys. So I took them. I do have that as a general rule. If you feel like burning a jersey or you feel like somebody's betrayed your team and you're going to set their jersey on fire, throw it in the garbage, just go ahead and send it my way, and I promise I will dispose of it via burning, whatever. I don't believe in burning jerseys. That's just a general rule. But yeah, so NFL week 2, we've already got a lot to talk about. I have a funny feeling I could probably do one of these videos a week. And again, once hockey season picks up and we get into some really, really regular NHL action, It's going to limit the amount of time I have to watch some NFL and talk NFL, but for now, I got some time, so we'll go ahead and do that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below regarding any of these items, or if you're a Broncos fan and you want to spill about how miserable you feel about the Broncos or Cardinals or whoever, by all means, let me know in the comment section below. And of course, Patriots fans will let us know why they're the rulers of the universe. And as a Chargers fan, I'm well aware that things don't look great this year. But I didn't have a whole lot of faith this year either. So we'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I will talk to you again soon.